We would like to present to you the book How to Prepare for and Respond to a Crisis. Authors are David Schoenfeld, Robert Lichtenstein, Marcia Klein Pruitt, Dees Spies Leinham.
Our group members consist of Laura Cummings, Rachel Bailey, and Jason Carnes.
The overview and summary. Chapter 1 is Preparing for a Crisis. Chapter 2, the Crisis Intervention Model. Chapter 3, Establishing Crisis Teams. Chapter 4, Responding to a Crisis. Chapter 5, Providing Clinical Support. Chapter 6, the Overall Picture, Integrated Mental Health Services. Chapter 1 introduces the need to prepare for a crisis. Goal 1 is to develop a school crisis intervention model. Goal 2 is to train school district personnel to prepare for and respond effectively to crisis situations. Goal 3 is to promote and coordinate emergency mental health services and resources for the region. The first chapter also gives some statistical information to help paint a picture of the scope of the problem. An example would be in one study in urban high schools, half the students reported knowing someone who was murdered. Another statistic was that 37% of the students had witnessed a shooting. And just most recently, we hear about in Pittsburgh High School about a stabbing of over 20 students. We have a major crisis problem in our schools today. Our students are bombarded with crisis. It presents a profound effect on the family, community, and individual students. The authors make it clear that crisis situations are inevitable in school settings. Preparation is critical to help ensure effective response. The issue is not whether a crisis will occur, but when and how serious it will be. Chapter 2, the Crisis Intervention Model. Chapter 2 introduces the Crisis Intervention Model. The authors believe in delivering a structure framework that can be the basis of collaboration, adaptation, and expansion to meet the needs of the school system. The main design of the Crisis Intervention Model revolves around a team approach. Staff members are selected by the principal at the school level to help meet certain needs of the team. A team approach is useful for many reasons, including working with the pressure of crisis work, moral support, and coordination. A team approach also helps the administrator with finding the best solutions and vantage points to specific situations. Also, in a serious crisis, too many things are normally happening to be handled by just one person. Each team needs to understand its specific goal and what they are doing in a crisis situation. They might have bereavement teams, suicide teams, physical safety teams, and each time might be assigned to a specific section of the school or a specific group of students. I know in my job, I'm a part of a crisis team that is designed to respond to crisis situations concerning special education children. It is important to have staff meetings in order to share information about crisis intervention and to enable staff to ask questions and voice their concerns. It also helps to make sure everyone on the team understands what to do in a crisis and everyone is on board with the same plan. The book continues on with the direction of how to interact with the students given various crisis scenarios and how to set up support rooms. It talks about what is appropriate action in response to crisis situations like suicide, death, and environmental disasters. What I found missing was responding to a specific crisis when a student has an IEP. In the field, I am hearing more and more from teachers that they do not know how to respond to a crisis concerning a child with an IEP and that they have not had the training concerning the response to IEP situations. I was hoping the book would address this situation, but it did not. In my journal article that I reviewed, the article was titled School Crisis Intervention, Building Effective Crisis Management Teams. It talked about the use of codes, like Code 1 was for lethal type crisis situations, Code 2 was for non-lethal type situations. It even broke down behavioral issues, physical issues, like if it was a fight. So it kind of went into more detail to help a team prepare for what to do in a specific crisis situation that this book did not specifically do.
In Chapter 3, we'll be talking about establishing crisis teams. Operational level. The initial task of establishing a crisis team is to decide at what level of operation the team will function. There are 3 levels of operation: the regional level, the county level, and the school level. The regional level should be mobile and able to assist in establishing crisis teams at the county level. In small rural areas, the regional group also has the responsibility of coordinating efforts among schools and throughout the community in the event of a large-scale crisis. The next step is at the county level. They are responsible for training individual schools and to fill in if a specific school does not have a crisis team. The final level is the school. In an ideal world, every school would have its own crisis team. It is important to note that crisis teams at any level should not function in isolation from community agencies whom can assist with team formation, training, and maintenance. Next, we would like to discuss principal involvement in team dynamics. In Lori Lowe's journal article, You Don't Know What You Don't Know, it states, when a crisis occurs that impacts students, leaders rarely have power to control the event. However, they have great power to control the outcome the event has on students. For this reason, the principal should always be a member of the crisis team at his or her school, preferably serving as the chair or assistant chair. Other recommended members for a school crisis team include school psychologists, social workers, and counselors. There should be cohesion among each role, and each team member should be capable of serving as a backup for other roles. It is also important to mention that the crisis team members should serve solely on the Crisis Prevention Committee and not be involved in other committees or programs. Lastly, in Chapter 3, we would like to talk about training. Training for team members is of utmost importance. A minimum of a full day of training is essential and should focus on the following content and process areas, stressing the likelihood that a crisis will occur, an overview of the crisis theory, concepts of loss and grief, developmental issues in children's response to death and loss, and responses to specific kinds of crisis. Training components that should be included in the training are as following: team building exercises, a question and answer period with a person who has managed crisis teams in the past, and lastly, a simulation exercises in which team members apply the model, practice assigned roles, and challenge ineffective team functioning. Now we will review Chapter 4, Responding to a Crisis. 3 challenges often surface when responding to a crisis. First, activation of the crisis team is not implemented. Coordination and communication, and lastly, interaction with the media. The book reveals that the most common issue is the failure to activate the crisis plan. This breakdown often occurs due to the principal minimizing or denying the seriousness of the situation. The next challenge that often surfaces when responding to a crisis is a breakdown in coordination and communication. Coordination and communication are critical elements in effective crisis management. The first step should be to obtain factual information as quickly as possible. This information is used to squelch rumors, update staff, and more importantly, to make sure that proper services are provided. Crisis team members should keep in constant communication with each other and ensure that all staff are briefed on the situation regularly. It is important that office staff be prepared to respond to questions from parents, media, and other community members. That leads us to the last challenge we will discuss in Chapter 4, dealing with the media. Advanced planning on policies and decisions about media contact is critical. All media should be directed to a predetermined spokesperson who can handle questions, interviews, draft press releases, and ensure that no media are present during school hours.
Chapter 5 touches on providing clinical support to both children and adults. It is characterized by entering a state of shock and later develop some emotional disorganization. If problems are left unresolved, students can suffer from psychological difficulties which have negative effects on long-term academic progress. Although situations pose psychological effects, these do not always have to be negative. Support, information, and practical assistance can allow a traumatized student to gain new insight. Typical supportive and therapeutic options include classroom discussion, brief intervention for identified students, school-based groups for at-risk students, and referral to community resources. Classroom discussions can have a positive and far-reaching impact on these coping with a traumatic event. Holding discussions in the classroom is proven to be the most effective approach and should generally be done by following the lead of the student. The discussion should progress slowly with little interruption and allow students to express as many different emotions as they need. Teachers are often overlooked as a group that needs support during a crisis situation. There is an unspoken expectation that adults should set aside their own feelings to meet the needs of their students. The crisis team should include a specific person to develop ways teachers to express their emotions as well. A staff that supports each other during these times of need ultimately leads to reinforcing the bonds that define a caring community. Chapter 6. A major obstacle to establishing a comprehensive system of the crisis intervention team is that mental health professionals found in school settings are few and far between. They may not have enough time to attend and participate in team planning because they are too busy attending to other important matters. Funding is another obstacle faced by those schools that don't have enough money to implement such elaborate teams. These schools need to be involved as well, just be creative and come up with the most cost-effective approaches. The use of effective strategies can help school staff be more effective in providing support, help students be able to respond in a more productive way, and assist with everyone learning to be more helpful and less likely to engage in risky behavior. An invisible benefit to developing strategies for crisis intervention and mental health services is the prevention of complications that often result when there is no crisis response team. Schools that are safe and promote open communication help reinforce personal responsibility. When we give support for mental health needs of our students, we then contribute to positive academic growth and a sense of well-being and security that will prevail across a community. The only classroom implication we found when reading the book is implementing classroom discussions to sort through emotions and gain some sense of control of the situation that has taken place. The scholarly article Preventing School Violence, A Plan for Safe and Engaging Schools, written by Michael Furlong, Erica Felix, Jill Sharkeg, and Jim Larson, touches on building safe environments within the classroom and preventing all forms of violence, including bullying, gun use, and even organized gang activity. This is something we feel the book lacks, as it only tells you who should be in charge of the crisis team, but leaves out direct instruction to teachers on how to handle real-life situations in the classroom. As a new teacher entering the classroom, one would not gain positive insight on how to handle a situation in the room after reading this book. This book has started out as a research project that was put together by our team of authors and was a collection of data pulled from a year's worth of research. This book is a compilation and analysis of that data.
This book is written more for administrators. However, administrators most likely don't have enough time to read this lengthy of a book when the information that they need could be presented in 5 pages or less. As a future teacher, this book did not help us to know how to handle a crisis situation in our classroom. With all of that being said, we do not recommend this book.
Another issue with the approach to the book is the scope and scale that the author presents. He is presenting a situation that a large school with, say, over 1,000 students and a large scope of teachers and staff would be able to create a large response team. Most schools are not this size and do not have the funding or resources to put together such an action. So I do not recommend this book either.
As mentioned earlier, this book does not address an entire host of issues that teachers are exposed to on a daily basis, like bullying or threats or an out-of-control student. For this reason, I cannot recommend this book. We would like to thank you for your time and hope that this presentation of how to prepare for and respond to a crisis has been helpful to the overall issue of crisis management.